They approached the building, and Leo laid down. Erin realized he wanted her to get off so that he could shift, so carefully dismounted him. Mr. Twinning steadied her so that she didn't fall, and she thanked him. She closed her eyes as she removed the backpack and opened it by touch. When the shifting was over, she opened her eyes and pulled out his clothing for him. He took it, thanking her, and started pulling everything on as the teachers unlocked the door and guided Enya and Ramos inside. Once inside, Ms. Klein made a few phone calls to the deans of students, while Mr. Twinning called out his king cobra totem and directed it to lay across both Enya and Ramos. Its hood was full as it hissed at both of them, daring them to move. Leo directed Erin to a seat and sat next to her. As Erin became drowsy, waiting for the alphas and her uncle to arrive, Leo directed her to spread out on the row of chairs to lay her head on his thigh. Both deans of students had come in and were brought to speed. They both headed to their respective offices to begin making the calls to the alphas and Erin's uncle. It was well after midnight when the three men walked into the office. Jacob immediately went to Erin, who was asleep.
Is she all right?
Just tired. She's an amazing mage.
Leo replied with a smile.
You must be her uncle?
Yes, Jacob Blackwell. And you are?
Leo Ravenwing of the Blood Talon Pack. Erin is my partner for the survival class. We were in the middle of our trial run, sir.
I understand.
He gently lifted Erin into his arms and then sat down with her. He understood that he was only here as Erin's guardian and to be kept in the loop at what would happen to her attackers. He would have no input on the punishment of the wolves because anything the mages would do in punishment would pale in comparison to what the wolves would do. He was actually happy in this moment for the harshness and strictness of law. He couldn't imagine how hurt he would be to lose his brother, his sister-in-law, and his niece in the same year. When Jacob had taken Erin, Leo quickly got up and knelt to his alpha.
Alpha Matthews.
Leo.
He acknowledged. Enya and Ramos were unable to give their own respect to their alpha with the king cobra across their laps. The werewolves could all smell the sour stink of fear upon them. Soon, the smell of rage filled the room from Alpha de Rosier as he looked upon the mated pair. This was their first year at this school, and they had damaged the name of their pack. He roared in rage, which woke Erin. His roar caused fear in any non-alpha. Erin clutched at her uncle, shaking with fear. He held her tightly as Alpha Matthews rested his hand on Leo to calm him. Mr. Twinning and Ms. Klein did not have their alphas here, nor did the dean of werewolf students. They, as well as the dean of mage students, all cowered at his roar. The fear caused Mr. Twinning to lose control of his king cobra totem, and it disappeared. Enya and Ramos fell to their knees in front of their alpha, both cowering in fear. The fear faded, and the non-alphas were able to stand again.
It is good to see you again, Alpha de Rosier.
Alpha Matthews greeted.
Stay.
He commanded Enya and Ramos.
Do not move.
He warned them. They continued to cower on the floor, clutching each other. He turned to the other alpha.
I wish it was not under such circumstances, Alpha Matthews. This is the Mage's guardian?
He asked, gesturing to Jacob. Jacob set Erin on the chair next to him and stood. He held out his hand to shake.
I am Jacob Blackwell.
The alphas both shook his hand in turn and introduced themselves. De Rosier turned to Erin and sighed.
I deeply regret the actions of my pack members. I was given a basic rundown of what was planned by them as well as your actions. I would hear it from you and Mr. Ravenwing.
They explained to the alphas, and Ms. Klein added the information she had gathered from Erin's parents. When they were finished, Alpha de Rosier nodded his understanding of the situation.
I would like the x-rays of Erin directly after the car accident. My judgment is that because they could not bear to share a school with one they see as a cripple, that they will become crippled exactly as you were after the car accident. I will not allow my pack's name to be tarnished by pups too stupid to put aside were beliefs while they are here and supposed to be learning.
No,
Enya called out. Rosier looked back at them and growled, making them both cower again.
Do you really think this is necessary, Alpha de Rosier?
Jacob asked.
It seems a bit harsh, quite a bit more than even I was expecting.
This is a serious offence, and they must be made examples. We cannot have our youth attacking
Cripples like me.
Erin supplied, seeing that he did not want to call her a cripple to her face.
Yes. However, if a cripple can take out wolves with such skill, perhaps a change in thought needs to occur.
He turned to Jacob.
So, will you give me the records?
Jacob nodded.
I would like for you both to be present for the sentence to be carried out.
He gestured to Leo and his Alpha to include him in the statement.
We would be honored to attend.
Alpha Matthews replied. Rosier turned to Erin.
You will not need to watch, but you do need to be seen by the pack. We can ensure you do not see or hear anything. I understand our ways may seem barbaric to you, but it is necessary to ensure obedience. Without laws, we become no better than the spiral dancers.
I understand, Alpha de Rosier.
Erin replied. He smiled kindly at her and patted her hand. He stood up and addressed Jacob.
Can we both meet back here tomorrow, or is that too soon to get your niece's medical records?
No, I have them at home. Say two? Give us both a chance to get some sleep tonight.
That should be fine. It will give me a chance to speak with my council of elders and set up a date for the sentence to be carried out.
They shook hands again, and Rosier took his pack members back home.
I will also come tomorrow so that I can get the date of the sentence too.
Alpha Matthews added.
I will see you then.
Jacob replied, shaking the Alpha's hand again. When they left, Jacob turned to Leo and Erin.
You two look beat. How about we get you both back to your dorms?
They both nodded.
We'll walk with Leo,
Ms. Klein replied. Soon everyone was back in their dorms or homes. The next day, after working out together and grabbing lunch, Leo and Erin headed over to the administrative building.
Leo?
He nodded.
Why did your Alpha come and not your parents?
Our Alphas came because our parents have no authority over pack matters like this. It cuts down time. Our Alphas are in charge of all major decisions for the pack. Now let's say I had misbehaved, maybe had a fist fight with another wolf. Then yes, my parents would have come along with my Alpha. My parents would have the first right to discipline me, and if it was not enough in my Alpha's eyes, he would give me further discipline. But this was not just an attempted murder, but also an attempted framing for the same murder. This could have caused a huge rift between my pack and the mage community. We could have been banned from attending the school and thus weakening our pack. Hell, we could even become hunted down and destroyed by mages as a result of this. For these reasons and more, I am very grateful to your parents for being there and sensing what was going to happen.
As they entered the administrative building, they saw ahead of them Erin's uncle entering one of the offices.
That must be where we are all meeting.
Erin pointed. As they neared the office, Leo held the door open for her. She thanked him and entered.
Hey, Uncle Jacob.
She greeted. He wrapped her in a hug and kissed her temple.
How are you holding up?
I'm okay.
Are you sure? You were the target of murder.
He was concerned she could be in shock.
I really am, Uncle Jacob. I promise. I think it's just that Mom and Dad caught everything before it could happen. You know?
Just making sure. I don't want you to become afraid to stay here.
I'm not.
Jacob released her as both of the Alphas entered the room.
Ah, Mr. Blackwell, is that the file?
Alpha de Rosier said as he shook Jacob's hand.
Yes, here you go. It shows how it was immediately after the accident, as well as the surgeries to repair the damage.
Jacob handed over the folder containing several x-rays.
Can I look too? I can't help but to be curious.
Alpha Matthews asked.
Yes. You should be aware of the punishment I will be enacting.
Rosier pulled out the first X-ray, which was her shoulder, and held it up to the light coming through the nearby window. The alphas would look at the various X-rays, pointing out different breaks, and then look over at Erin, surprised a human survived the damage.
May I take these back to show my Council of Elders?
Sure. I can collect them when we come for the sentencing.
Jacob replied.
That sounds good. We will have the sentencing next Saturday. If you like, I will send my mate here so that she can guide the pups to our packlands, and she can guide both of you too,
Rosier said.
That is agreeable to me.
Matthews replied. Jacob nodded as well.
What time?
It looks like this will be extensive, so I would suggest early, perhaps 7 a.m.? That will give the pack time to see Erin, and if she does not wish to watch the sentencing, we can get her to one of the outer buildings. I must warn you, Miss Blackwell, you will have to come out once they have completed the punishment. I promise you will not have to stay long, but we do require that you witness that it has been completed.
I understand, Alpha de Rosier.
She replied softly, not looking forward to it. The following week passed by too quickly for Erin's liking. It was soon Saturday again. Her alarm went off at 6. She turned off the alarm as she sat up, sighing. Amy groaned.
I don't envy you today at all. Do you know where to go?
We're supposed to meet Alpha de Rosier's mate at the portals, and then follow her back to the packlands of the Silver Moon Pack.
What time?
Amy asked.
I've got an hour.
Erin replied as she got up, and Furniture walked along with her cane to get to the closet.
Do you have a pair of boots?
Yeah, why?
Most packlands aren't very smooth, so it would be easy to twist an ankle if you just wear your sneakers.
Makes sense.
Erin made sure to dress warmly. Leo had warned her that the place they were going to had likely already seen its first snows. Once she was dressed and her leg brace in place, she said goodbye and headed out. Leo met her outside of the dorm with a bagel with cream cheese and an orange juice.
Here. Silver Moon will likely also offer us breakfast, as well as lunch and dinner, if it takes so long. But I thought you might like something now, before we head out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
He held the orange juice while she ate the bagel, and then handed over the orange juice.
Pure heaven, Leo.
He chuckled. They neared the portal sites and saw Jacob waiting with Alpha Matthews. Jacob wrapped Erin in a hug.
Did you sleep well?
No.
She confessed.
At least it's Saturday and you can get some sleep tomorrow.
He replied. Within a few minutes, the Alpha's mate arrived. Quick introductions were made, and she guided them all through. Amy had been right. As Erin stepped through, a cold, biting wind hit her face and exposed hands. This area was a park of some place with a trail, which they were in a secluded part of.
My car is not far,
She said as she led them to the parking lot and into a minivan. Once they were loaded in, she drove them to an old hunter's cabin, which had a small parking lot near it.
This is just where the cars are kept and an address to give other packs if they needed to visit to conduct business. Where we will be traveling is still a few miles in.
She looked at Erin.
Will you be all right?
Erin smiled.
As long as you aren't planning on running, I'll be okay.
She nodded and led the way. It was a difficult trek for Erin, but she popped one of the pills her great-great-grandfather had showed her how to make. It dulled the pain of the long walk and made it bearable. Leo noticed and whispered,
Are you okay? I can carry you.
I'm a little achy, but the medication will help, I promise.
I can still carry you.
No, Leo, I don't want to look weak coming into the pack territory. You know?
Alpha Matthews overheard them.
You are not weak, little one, and if you need to be carried, it will be by me.
The rest of the walk was quiet. Erin's first view of a pack surprised her. This pack looked like a log cabin community. There was one house that was a little larger on the opposite side from where they were coming in. Matthews pointed to it.
That is this pack's Alpha House. It also holds a council room for any meetings with the Council of Elders. The houses closest to the Alpha House will be for council members, and the rest belong to pack members. There are shops down the center street. usually things like a bakery, butcher, various artisans, and other specialty shops. They will likely have farmlands nearby too. A pack will share any of the bounty from the farming and the animals we keep. Various packs make mundane money in various ways. Some packs even run successful businesses, but that's more your West Coast packs.
He smiled. He had not become alpha by not being observant. He saw the way Leo looked upon this mage. It was highly likely that she was his mate. It was unusual for sure, but the were community needed the new blood. She came from a very strong bloodline, so if they had pups, were, or mage, they would be strong. But he was getting ahead of himself, he knew. He wanted to ensure that this mage would not come to fear them, and he truly hoped that this sentencing would not damage her view of them. It would be brutal to her, so he hoped that she did not choose to watch. Leo would, of course, be required to watch. As they neared the Alpha House, Alpha de Rosier exited the building.
Hello, everyone. I am glad to see you all again. I hope that perhaps we can meet again on better terms. I will explain how this will happen. Enya and Ramos will be brought out and the gathering bell will be rung. When enough people have gathered, their crimes will be stated and their sentence will be stated. They will have the ability to say anything they want to or need to say, and then one of the council members will take Erin and her uncle to one of the pack members' houses. It is as far away from where the sentence will be carried out as we can go, and we have added many mattresses to the room along the walls to help to deaden any sounds. We know that this is not how you grew up, so we cannot ask you in good conscience to watch it. There will be several breaks so that we do not accidentally kill Enya and Ramos. We will make sure you have any food you need. Of course, if you wanted to walk around, no one would stop you. I just don't think that under the circumstances you would want to. David and Jennifer Renard are the pack members whose house you will be staying at. Jennifer will stay at home, so if you need anything, you can let her know. Once everything is completed, you will be asked to come back out to bear witness that they have undergone the sentencing. After that, my mate will lead you back to the minivan and take you back to the portal. Are we ready? Have you eaten? I would not want to give bad hospitality.
No, Alpha de Rosier. I am not hungry. Leo made sure I had something to eat before we came here. I am ready to get this finished.
The wolves could smell her fear and unease, but she was giving them a brave face, so they would not dishonor her by saying anything about it.
All right, I will have them brought out.
De Rosier turned and headed back in the Alpha House. A short time later, Enya and Ramos exited with heads lowered. They were in clean clothes and looked clean and healthy. There were no signs of mistreatment, nor were they restrained in any way. They were, however, flanked by two strong-looking men. Alpha Matthews leaned down and whispered to Erin to clarify.
It is a matter of honor. They know what is going to happen to them, but they will endure it to keep their parents' honor intact, as well as the honor of their future pups. To run or fight back would see them exiled from the pack. While that isn't a death sentence, because several werewolves find life with a pack to be confining and chose to live alone, it would be difficult, especially with them both being so young.
He saw her nod.
So long as they did not try to fight or run, they were treated as normal pack members, though they were also kept under a constant guard.
He gestured to the two werewolves guarding the pair. He saw her nod again. They watched as council members also exited the building and stood in an arc around the courtyard of the Alpha House, where the sentencing would occur. De Rosier gestured to the elders, and the eldest came forward and rang the large bell that was on the side of the courtyard closest to the village. The loud bongs made by the bell's clapper reminded Erin of the bell that had rung overhead when she had signed her name in the book to claim her power. It was a brief flashback, but it reminded her that she was strong enough to watch the sentencing. She had been through much worse than this during her journey to the tower. Alpha Matthews noticed the change in her scent. There was anxiety, but the fear was gone. The pack members began to fill the courtyard. Some were dressed normally, but many wore only the spelled undergarments that allowed them to shift and not have to carry their clothing with them. The young children were not present, but Erin did see that children that were about 12 and up were present. This meant that the pack knew that this would be happening. She looked around at the faces of the pack a little worriedly. Alpha Matthews recognized her distress, so placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and gave it a little rub. The faces of the pack did not show any anger towards her, but instead, they showed shame. Erin then understood that this was a matter of honor for the whole pack. This was why there was no anger towards her or even Leo. When the flow of pack members stopped, Alpha de Rosier began to speak.
I am glad to see all of your faces. Our guests today are Alpha Matthews and Leon Ravenwing of the Blood Talon Pack, as well as the mages Jacob and Erin Blackwell.
He gestured to Enya and Ramos next.
These wolves here intended to kill Miss Blackwell and blame it upon Mr. Ravenwing. Miss Blackwell defended both herself and Mr. Ravenwing without a drop of blood being spilled. For that, Miss Blackwell, we are grateful.
He held out a hand to one of the council members, and she handed him the folder that Erin recognized held her x-rays.
My decision is to cripple these wolves in the same way Miss Blackwell was crippled in a car accident.
He held up the x-rays in question, one by one, so that the pack could see the damage.
However, as you can see, there is no way for me to replicate these shattered bones without potentially killing both of these wolves. In fact, it is only because Miss Blackwell was also awakening as a mage that she was able to survive these injuries. I also cannot blind them because I would only be able to ensure blinding with claw. Such an injury could cause serious infection and would also go against the intent of this punishment. The council and I have come to an agreement. I will be administering the following: a break to the clavicle, the upper arm, as well as both bones in the lower arm and the femur. I will also be dislocating the knee of the same leg. We felt these injuries would be crippling enough to replicate the amount of damage done despite Miss Blackwell never having had her lower arm broken during the car accident. Is there anyone who feels that this punishment is unjust?
He took a moment and looked around at everyone present. Alpha Matthews leaned down and whispered to Erin.
Their parents have a right to demand a harsher punishment, as does the rest of the pack. But this is a fair trade.
She gave him a small nod of understanding. When no one spoke out, Alpha de Rosier continued, addressing the two wolves.
Is there anything either of you would like to say?
Ramos looked over to Erin and Leo.
We are deeply sorry for not only what we intended to do to you both, but for our false beliefs. You, Erin Blackwell, are truly strong and worthy. We are glad we were not successful.
He reached over and gave his mate's hand a squeeze, and she nodded her agreement. Enya spoke up.
We would both like to be crippled on the left as Erin has been.
De Rosier nodded.
Jacob Blackwell, Erin Blackwell, you are not required to watch this part. I will have Councilwoman Vanier take you to the pack house we spoke of.
Jacob spoke up.
I will honor this sentencing by witnessing all of it.
De Rosier smiled.
I am happy to have your witness.
Erin also took the time to speak.
I would also bear witness.
Her voice was small, she knew, but she also knew this was the right thing to do. Alpha de Rosier's eyes grew wide, and he took a few steps towards her. Alpha Matthews also turned towards her, placing a hand on her shoulder as he looked upon her with concern. It was de Rosier who spoke.
Are you certain of this? You may leave at any time. This is not a matter of your honor. You understand this?
I understand, Alpha de Rosier. I just feel like it's the right thing to do.
Enya and Ramos both smiled widely, happy that she would bear full witness. It would do much to mend the damage they had caused.
Then I will begin.
It was brutal. Erin felt like she would hear those screams echo in her mind for a long time. She couldn't help the tears that flowed down her face. She could tell that de Rosier was doing this in a way to cause the least amount of extra damage. He gave them both time to recover after each break, and they did not struggle. In fact, they would help their alpha to get good, clear strikes upon themselves. They had to break for lunch in the middle, during which the bones already broken were set and splinted to keep them from further damage. The four of them ate lunch with the alpha. He was concerned that Erin was not eating enough, but it was Leo who let him know it was normal for her to eat so little. When he was sure that everyone had eaten their fill and that the two wolves had been patched up, he guided them back outside and rang the bell himself to signify that the sentencing was to continue. It lasted several more hours as they wanted good placement for these last few strikes, and they had to be sure of the order of them. When everything was finished, they were seen to set the brakes, and Jacob requested to check them both to ensure no internal bleeding or bone shards that could cause future damage. He made minor repairs to both of the young werewolves and then said to them,
I forgive your actions against my niece. We are now even.
Alpha Matthews walked forward, as did Leo. They both stated that they both also forgave them and declared them even. Erin quickly realized what was being done, so she also walked up to them and made a similar statement.
Thank you. Thank all of you. You have no idea what this means to us.
Enya replied. She and Ramos were taken to their homes to rest, and due to the time, the four of them were invited to stay for dinner before heading back out. As they began to head out, Alpha Matthews turned to Erin.
All right, little one. You are done putting on your brave face. I am going to shift, and I will carry you to the car. Avert your eyes now.
He had been undressing as he spoke, and Leo collected his Alpha's clothing for him. He had suspected his Alpha would do this. They had both seen that Erin was hiding her pain the best she could. Both Erin and Jacob closed their eyes, and when the shifting was finished, they opened them again. The Alpha was a beautiful dark brown, similar to Leo's coloring. He laid down, and Leo helped her up.
This is weird,
Erin commented. Leo chuckled, and the Alpha chuffed. He was smaller than Leo. Mrs. de Rosier addressed the Alpha.
Alpha Matthews, I know that running will be preferable to walking while bearing Miss Blackwell. If you would like to run ahead, we can catch you up.
He thought about it for a moment, and then looked up at Erin to gauge her thoughts on it.
Leo has run with me. I'm okay with it.
She got into a better position.
Does this feel correct?
He nodded. Mrs. de Rosier chuckled.
Looks like you're a natural. Here are the keys so you can get into the minivan and stay warm.
She handed Erin the keys, and she tucked them into her pocket. When she replaced her arm around the Alpha, he started with a trot, and then a run. A walk of 2 hours took him only a half hour to run. At the minivan, he laid back down for her, and she got off of him.
Did you need me to close my eyes?
He shook his head no.
Okay, I'm going to start the car and warm up a bit. Did you want to come in too?
He gave an equivalent to a wolf shrug.
Did you just shrug?
He chuffed. Her uncle still had her cane, so she had to walk while holding on to the minivan, and he pressed himself to her to give her something else to hold on to.
It's okay, Alpha. I furniture walk all the time in my dorm room, and I do that without my leg brace.
He chuffed again. She unlocked the minivan and got inside, started the engine, and set the heater to high.
How about I open the side door for you to get in?
He thought for a while and then nodded. She closed the driver's side door and then hopped over to the back and opened the side door. He carefully climbed in and curled up, wedging himself between the seats. He didn't fit so well, but he did it anyway to keep her from worrying about him.
Are you sure you're comfortable?
He nodded and chuffed again. Erin headed back towards the driver's seat. She didn't want to have the car run the whole time, so when it got warm enough, turned it off. Alpha Matthews lifted his head and gave her a low woof.
It's okay, Alpha. I'm warm enough. The car doesn't need to run the whole time. I'll turn it back on if I get chilly again.
He put his head down again, content with her answer. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable by wearing only a loincloth around her, so his wolf form would do for now until Leo arrived with his clothing.
This reminds me of falls back home,
Erin said after a while. He lifted his head. Jacob Blackwell lived in Virginia.
I grew up in Michigan. This is a little colder than we got this time of year, but not completely unheard of.
He nodded and settled back down again. It was another hour before Leo, Jacob, and Mrs. de Rosier arrived. Erin opened the driver's door and carefully stepped out.
Hey, Erin. Where's Alpha Matthews?
Leo asked.
He's in the minivan.
As a wolf.
She nodded. He chuckled.
You made my Alpha squeeze into the minivan?
I offered it, and he seemed to fit just fine. Ish.
Jacob handed her the cane, so she was able to walk around to the side door. She opened it, and Leo peeked inside. She heard him chuckling.
What?
Why did you make him get in the van?
I didn't make him.
She protested, making the wolf inside chuff in amusement.
It's cold outside. I didn't want him to get cold when there was a warm car available.
This made all of the werewolves laugh and chuff.
Erin, we not only run a bit warmer than humans, but he's got his fur. It's like wearing a fur coat.
Alpha Matthews had climbed out of the minivan by then, so she turned to him. And why didn't you say anything? She had her hands on her hips. Leo couldn't answer from laughing so hard. Jacob answered instead.
The Alpha is a mated man. I'm sure his mate would be unhappy to hear that he was nearly naked in a minivan with a teenager. Not to mention he would be nearly naked with a teenager in a confined place. He couldn't know if you would become attracted by him or be embarrassed by it. The wolf form is far easier to work with in the situation.
Oh, I feel really bad now.
By this time, Matthews was able to shift back and put his clothing back on.
Don't feel bad. Your uncle is correct, though. My mate might have torn me apart to be with a female teenager in so little clothing.
There was laughter in his voice.
But I'm happy you had such concern for me. You have a good heart.
On the drive back to the portal site, Mrs. de Rosier would give a little chuckle. When they were finally there and about to step through, she finally said,
My mate is going to break a rib in laughter from this. Just the sight of you squeezed into the backseat floor area. I'm surprised you didn't get stuck, Alpha.
He chuckled with her.
It was close. Had I been a full moon wolf like Leo, I would not have fit at all.
Erin had noticed he was a little bit smaller than Leo, so she guessed he might be a gibbous moonwolf. Once the four of them had returned to the school, Jacob walked Erin back to her dorm room. When they were out of earshot, Matthews turned to Leo.
So, have you told her yet?
Told her what?
Don't try to play dumb with me. I can tell she is your mate by the way you look at her. Does she know?
No. I haven't told her. I didn't want to scare her away.
I can understand that. She won't feel the mate bond until you both mate. It's good to go slowly, but is she attracted to you? Does she know that you have any attraction towards her?
She's my survival class partner. I don't want to chase her away.
Don't wait too long. It will destroy you to see her date someone else.
I know. On the bright side, now that everyone knows she is from a powerful mage family, she's leery of Guy's intentions.
That does benefit you, Leo. But please, don't wait too much longer. It's not good for you to be so long without your mate. It can make you move too fast once you do start dating. Try to spend as much time as you can in physical contact. It will help.
Oh, I kind of do already. I've been helping her with physical therapy, and sometimes that takes physical contact, especially when we do the therapy in the pool.
That's good. Keep it up. The Blackwells don't live too far from the pack, maybe a good 2 hours. It will be a good idea for you to hang out a few times during Thanksgiving and Christmas break. Perhaps even bring her to visit the pack.
But won't the pack have issues with her?
No, because I have no issue with her. And if they try and have a problem with her, they will have a problem with me. Besides, your mate can clearly take care of herself.
I'll wait until we get closer to break.
Good. I'll see you for the long Thanksgiving break. I'll let your parents know that you are well.
He then turned and headed to the portal that would take him home, while Leo headed to his dorm pack house.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button at the bottom of the video. Your generosity goes a long way. Every bit helps us bring you more stories from the stars. Thanks a bunch.